Nope. Sorry about that,
No
but
worries.
yeah, bear with me. Ah, there we go. Okay, I think we're live here.
Perfect.
Let's see, there's 8 people watching on YouTube. I'm going to ask you guys to let us know in the chat that things are happening, that you're seeing us here on screen. Lightly sweating on my end, because this isn't an issue. I see here in Riverside the watch count is also like moving a little bit, so that's good to see. Okay, there we go. We got a hello. Our first inaugural hello in this one. Gee, that got me worried for a second. Always like as the hostess of this thing, like it's always an issue. Right. Cool. I'm just going to drop a link because we didn't manage to connect on LinkedIn. So everyone who's on YouTube, you guys are on the superior platform. I'm just going to drop a line on LinkedIn that people can watch us live here. And then we can get this show on the road. Yeah. Right.
YouTube is the superior platform from a social search perspective, anyway. So,
There we go. There we go. Cool. The good thing is that everyone who got registered through the Luma event link got the right link, so they're eventually getting here and seeing us, so that's awesome. Right, I'm not gonna spend more time. I'm going to sort of calm down a little bit, drop that heart rate going, and I just want to take a moment to first thank you, Mathilde, for joining us today and being so kind with sharing everything you know about social search, about the role of different platforms, and specifically the role of TikTok and what content was there. I wanted to quickly share with people sort of a short anecdote as we're getting in here. So this is probably the quickest turnaround from meeting someone to asking them to be a speaker in this little informal live session series that I'm doing. We were together with Mathilde in the end of last year at a mini conference over here in Sofia, and I saw her talk about TikTok. I was like, I have literally no idea what's going on in this channel. This woman seems to know her way around it. So I need to learn from her more because we only had like 15 to 20 minutes per session, and I was like, let's expand that a little bit, let's give it 90 minutes and see how that goes. So I'm super happy to have you. First off, because I know that this is going to go super well, no pressure, and also because it's a topic that I really don't know enough about, and I'm going to be here not just as a host to this series and as a someone organizing this event, but also as a curious marketer who wants to learn more. So I think that's the best position. So yeah, welcome.
thank you, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course, pleasure is all mine. So I wanted to sort of start this off by merging two topics a little bit. So if you want to tell us a little bit about your personal, career story. I know your background is in SEO, and I'm curious to hear how that transformed from like the old 10 blue links kind of world into what you're focusing on now, which also involves a lot of social search. And I think that this is going to pair nicely with how the search market and like environment is changing in general. So yeah, I know it's a big question and there's a lot to cover. So I'm going to give you the time and space to to cover it in detail.
Thank you. First of all, I haven't actually been doing SEO for that many years. I think 5 years or something like that. So you can say my route into social search and TikTok SEO specifically has actually been combined with my SEO experience because I have a master's degree in media studies from a university here in Denmark, where I've always been drawn towards social media. And I wrote my master's thesis around how young schoolgirls use TikTok specifically for anything really, just how they use it, and how they, for instance, use the like button as a saving button instead of the actual saving button. And when I began diving into the world of search and SEO, it just felt very natural to also see if I could combine those two disciplines, as well as as you said, the whole search environment also beginning to change a lot, and TikTok especially changing a lot in the way that they do stuff. Because if we go back to 2019 when TikTok first launched, it was very clearly a social media platform, very similar to
Yeah.
Instagram or Facebook and all of the other platforms that we know. But then they began to update and include ads and include Wikipedia snippets and do stuff that none of the other platforms had done previously. And that's why it became very clear to me that they were doing something different and they were catering way more towards the search community, if you can say it like that, or drawing more search behavior onto the platform. And if we go up into the helicopter perspective again, it's very clear that the search environment is just, it takes place in a lot of different platforms, in a lot of different media generally. For I think in the blue links world and on Google we have been talking around voice searching and visual searching for years. So in the older perspective, things have also changed, and then we got AI and LLMs, and it changed a bit more, and other social media platforms came into the view. So today it's just very fragmented compared to what it used to be, I guess, especially if we go back 10 or 20 years.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting point. By the way, in the chat we have a request for your master's thesis because it sounds the topic sounds interesting,
Yeah.
and I do agree it does. So one thing that that sort of kind of related to what you're talking about, and I want to make sure that we sort of hit the nail on the head in this one. I want to make sure that we tell people what this platform is all about. And a key thing here, and I have been like sort of biased myself, is the fact that TikTok is still, to many people it feels like, oh, it's young people's platform, oh, it's just for fun, oh, if you're trying to market stuff on there, you only can do it if you're from a B2C consumer brand, FMCG or whatever. So, what's your perspective on that? And maybe we can also talk about the type of clients you work with and how they're covering that. But even going beyond your personal, portfolio and so on, what's the type of content that fares well on TikTok from the perspective of industries, B2B versus B2C, and all the like?
What draws people to TikTok is the short form content that is very tailored to what each person wants to see. So regardless of what interest that you do have, and that can be a lot at the same time, you will see a feed that is completely tailored to every interest and personality that you have, and every need that you have. For instance, I'm in a process right now where I'm looking for a new espresso machine. So my favorite creator right now is actually Sage Appliances UK, because they're showcasing their products. And that brings value to what I want to see, but that's not necessarily the image that you will see in a month or in 2 months when I have decided on actually buying or not. So that's the most important thing to take away from the platform, that it's so highly tailored to each need. And that, yeah, makes people go into the platform, and also why a lot of different brands and companies can work on the platform, because they just need to find that tick for each user that they want to cater to. And that makes the content very different. So I want to see a certain piece of content, maybe because that speaks to who I am, but you might want to see something very different, because that speaks to who you are. And that is why we can say that it's the platform is both for B2C companies but also for B2B companies, and also regardless of you having a boring brand or a fun brand. And there's just a lot of possibilities to actually create and let your hair down, so to say, on the platform, that you might not have on Facebook or LinkedIn, which are more older platforms and maybe more professional. So yeah, you have free reign, really. Also, with, if we have to talk specifically around the image, that it's a young people platform. If we look at it from an audience size, then yes, it is Gen Z that is the biggest audience on the platform, and they are usually being referred to as a young audience. But you must always keep in mind that the older generations within Gen Z are turning 30 right now, this year and next year. So they are becoming older and more strong in buying and decision making. So the older people are also coming onto the platform. It's just very common to talk about it being a young platform or young people
Yeah.
platform, because it haven't been around for that long.
Yeah, that's true. By the way, thank you for making me feel ancient with
I'm
that
so
stat
sorry.
that Gen Z is turning 30. Gosh. Yeah, if I can sort of extend on that a little bit with an example from my own work, I'm working with a client who's doing strategy consulting with big Fortune 1000 type of companies, and he's targeting chief strategy officers, chief innovation officers, so people at the top tier of decision making levels in their companies and in their industries. And last year, he started experimenting with creating content on TikTok, much the same kind of topics that we are working on in LinkedIn, but in a more visual style, obviously. And he's seeing even getting proper, meaningful engagement from people within this ICP target audience, because at the end of the day we're all people and we want to, chill out at the end of the day and do some stuff. And it turns out that chief strategy officers of huge companies are still spending time on TikTok just because it's a fun place to hang out. And this is sort of related to what you were talking about the, I'd call it versatility, or the many different faces of TikTok. Because, yeah, if you are interested in, Korean beauty hacks, you're gonna find that content on
Yeah.
TikTok. But also, the algorithm works really hard to present to you content that's interesting to you specifically. And if that's business and strategy advice, it's going to show you business and strategy advice. So, from the different perspective, if you're the person who's providing that type of advice, you'd want to be there still.
Yeah.
Is there specifically, I'm curious because a lot of the people here in the group would be based in Europe. Is there a substantial difference between the demographics of TikTok here in Europe compared to the US or on different markets? Could you speak to that? And I don't want to put you on the place to quote specific, percentages and so on. So just talking in more broad strokes.
I am not sure about the numbers at all. So in broad strokes, I would say that the demographic would be very similar.
Yeah.
I think we Europeans are more open minded also towards content from different cultures.
Yeah.
Where, if we have to speak around the US, they have had the whole discussion going on around whether the platform was supposed to be banned or not.
Yeah.
And if we take Australia, they have just banned the social media platforms for people below 15, but the young ones are still accessing it.
Yeah.
So at a general level, I would say that the demographics are very similar across all markets. Of course, there will be some differences, but I think that's mostly to do with how technologically mature a market is. So not necessarily only related to social media usage, but yeah, in general.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. By the way, on the Australian part, everyone who's in digital in any shape or form was curious about how that would go, and I just saw a creator from Australia who's pretty famous, and he has three boys who are like around 10 years of age, and he was asking his community of Aussies to say if their kids are actually keeping up with the ban or if they're managing to find ways to circumvent it, and something like 80% were saying, oh yeah, they're on there no matter what, like they're gonna find a way. So
Yes.
yeah, that's quite curious. So I guess if we've covered the bit, we've demystified TikTok being only Gen Z, TikTok being only B2C. Let's dive a little bit deeper into what actually works on TikTok. So can you speak a little bit to the user behavior on the platform and what users are looking for?
Yes, of course. Again, it varies a lot, of course, because the needs are so specific for each user. But I generally like to divide it into three groups. So we have some search behavior that is more, or user behavior that is more inspirational usage. So you want to decompress and just scroll, maybe search a little bit for some inspiration for things you want to know something about, or you just want to be getting pushed to you. Then we have the more deep learning way of consuming content, where, like me, about to buy maybe an espresso machine, I want to know how it works. I want to know how I make that espresso shot, and that takes way more time for me than just a normal day of consuming all types of videos. And then the last one, and the one that makes maybe take the most of the TikTok really, is the tactical one. So travel talk, it's huge. People want to know where to go. They want to know what to see and what to discover, and that is where TikTok really has made a difference, because you can actually see and feel how a hotel looks or an activity looks. It's not just a TripAdvisor page that you're visiting and have maybe some sort of review that you can maybe relate to. Whereas when you watch a video on it, you can actually see how it looks and almost feels to be there in person. So, so yeah, it's um, it's those main three ways of using the platform. But again, it's so specific how people really use it, because again, some people want to see content around again, travel, food, medicine, banking advice. Just want to see cute dogs or cats or something like that. So it's, yeah, it's really different. Sometimes you get things on your feed that you have only just thought about that you wanted to know about, and then it magically shows up. So yeah, it's very different.
Yeah. Okay. So if we're talking about these three categories, then sort of flipping the coin from the perspective of the brand. So what like when you're thinking about creating content or a content strategy, let's call it, for presence on TikTok, how do you sort of differentiate between, are you still thinking within these three buckets where you would be like, okay, like we need 30% roughly, for each one, or is there, do you get deeper into the intent that you're trying to satisfy? Like, how does that go?
You need to, of course, both cater to the keywords and searches that are relevant for your brand and for your product, if you have a product as well. But it's really about yeah, making sure you are catering to the different search needs. So having that inspiration that will essentially be the awareness phase. So making sure that they see your brand and they know your brand, and then also if they then decide to deep dive further down into what your products can actually do, then you have the deep learning videos. So also maybe important to remember, people are most of the time only watching videos from their own For You page, so where the algorithm have decided which videos to show. So a user will, in most cases, not go into your profile and watch the videos in that order. They
Yeah.
will only see the videos they are exposed to. So you can have those or need to have those different types of videos to each stage in the buying journey and each need, and because the different users that are in those different stages will get exposed to it when they are in the right stage, you could say. So that's important to keep in mind when you plan for it, and then again knowing your keywords so you can actually optimize the videos for it. But also just taking a look what works from other brands or other creators. Sometimes you can just copy what others are doing, and other times you can go and build that spaceship on your own if you're really creative. But social listening goes a long way also.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned on the one hand side, I would assume that this process involves mapping out the customer journey, figuring out what's the intent at each step, and then building content that satisfies that intent. Is
Yeah.
that how you usually approach it? Yeah.
Yeah, and then having a very close dialogue with your social search, not social search, but social team,
Yeah.
because they are the ones who are used to actually using the platforms and making the content both organically and for paid as well. So they know what the users would want to see. And if you can keep that holistic approach and actually combine your departments, so both the organic SEO optimization department, but also the social media department, then you really have a strong team for attacking this new way of searching and using social media as well.
Yeah, so looking at it both from the more strategic perspective of customer journey and keyword and topic availability, and then from the more creative slash social side.
Yes.
I know that some of the people here wouldn't bat an eye when you're talking about the social media department and content strategy person, but some of you I know are here who are here watching this are like, oh, that's both of these people is me.
Yeah.
So you can put on the different hats and pay attention to what's working in the platform and get that creative juices flowing to build
Yeah.
on top. um, so you mentioned looking at it from the perspective of keywords. So I'm gonna get a little bit more technical here. So do you use any specific tooling for keyword research specifically for TikTok, or how do you approach figuring out what keywords you need to be looking for?
At the first step, I'm looking at the keyword analysis that you might have done or already have from your normal SEO work. TikTok doesn't give any information around search volumes at all, so you cannot make that API call into a tool, um,
Yeah.
unfortunately. The tools that say that they have that volume available are flat out lying. So don't go buy any tools that say that they have that available. But what they have, TikTok, they have created this, you can call it an internal tool. It's in the search function on TikTok. If you search for creator search insights, it comes up as a sort of a search volume tool where it shows keywords within a subject, and how popular it has been for the past 7 days. So that is a tool I would use, TikTok's own, and then of course tap into the search function and see what is trending within the keywords that we have from our normal audit, if you could say, or Google audit. Um, so if I have a client who sells hair products, searching for hair specifically in TikTok and see what comes up, what related searches are coming up, and then tapping into those and see what are the subjects that the videos are talking about. And then slowly deep diving further and further down into the specific queries and questions and, yeah, stuff people want to know.
Yeah. And when you're looking at this, is there? I imagine part of this is going to be very specific to the specific project case. But is there framework, let's call it, that you use to identify these opportunities?
Um, I think it's difficult for me to answer if there's a framework. But I do have a list of the steps that I do take.
Yeah.
So going from a broader perspective down to the bottom of the funnel, really, and then trying to match that into a content type, if you could say. So what would a video look like to cater to this certain keyword? If it's if the keywords is activities in Barcelona, then having to figure out, okay, which format is then the best one to choose. What are other people doing? Is it a um, vlogging type of video we need to do where I film myself the whole day and talk to the camera, or can we do it like more inspirational where we just throw pretty pictures of Barcelona and things you can do? So trying to map that maybe is the most important thing, and then also making sure that you think about how will I hook the viewers, because you have to hook them within the first 2 seconds,
Yeah.
and if you don't do that, they're lost forever, almost. So figuring out how do you make that interest peak in the beginning of the video as well.
So when you're talking about the different formats that you use, and when you're saying formats, it's obviously all short video, but we're talking about the sort of the setup, the format that you would use. So when you're looking at that, how do you decide? Is it mostly about like what's already working, so what's showing up in the first results when you search for that specific term or phrase?
It's not necessarily the first result, but it has to be a mixture of what are other people doing and what are
Yeah.
the resources that I have available myself. Because
Mm-hmm.
if
Okay.
you just go through the first results that are coming up, I would imagine that you also see a very different examples of how people are doing it. In some videos, it might just be one person filming themselves and then either talking or showcasing stuff. In other videos, it might just be pictures or, again, landscapes or something. So no people are involved. It's just a voiceover. And then in other cases, for instance, if we move into, again, the more corporate world, It might be videos of team members that are doing stuff or yeah, performing. It might be filters in some other videos. So you have to think about, of course, what works for that audience and that search, but also what are the resources that you have available to actually do a video and make it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Like whatever you see, it might be very high production value, or it might just not be on brand. So
Yeah.
that's a good point. Um, so I would assume that from the perspective of actually figuring out the format and figuring out what you want to create, as you mentioned, resources is key. Is there anything on the, if you will, on the technical side of how you build that video, like maybe it's format, length, captions, whatever there is to make this video perform better, regardless of obviously like topic and creative potential that you're sort of creative effort rather that you're investing into it.
Yeah. The best format for the video specifically is of course a vertical video, because that is how most of the users are actually using TikTok. Uh, the length has to be around those 15 to seconds to 1 minute, because that is kind of the sweet spot where users are watching videos. It can be shorter, it can be longer, but it needs to fit the what you want to show. If it's a longer explanation video, then of course go above the 1 minute. But if it's just how can you say it, normal videos that you're doing, then keep it in that sweet spot. Captions are very important, because it's quite paradoxical actually, because the sound side of things is extremely important. You have to have a sound, either a voiceover or a sound that is trending or uh, yeah, just relevant to use within the platform. But there's also a lot of users that are watching without sound, and for them you need to have the captions. So keep it as a rule of thumb to always have captions on, even though you, if you have speak, of course, a voiceover, but just always keep it there, because then both the ones watching with sound and without sound can get an understanding of what's going on, and they have an auto function for this where it just listens and then puts it down into text. So that's extremely important to have that. And then also just from an optimization perspective, of course, having a description to your video, and including maybe some hashtags as well to get it into the broader system as we know it from social media platforms in general. And if you're again doing a voiceover or want to have that hook within your audience, then apply the text to your screen, not as a caption, but just as a description in the video, if that makes sense. So I know Red Bull does this a lot, because they are often showing videos of athletes doing stuff, jumping out of something, high places, or biking or something like that. And instead of showcasing the full video from start to finish, they might show the ending first, and then write something in the middle. Watch what happens now, and then you want to watch what happens, and then it goes back to the beginning, so you get the full experience, but they have created that hook in the beginning to actually keep you watching. So that will be the technical side of things, I would say.
Yeah, so having that strong hook is also an important bit, and then being focused on the length there is another key component, I think. It's frankly like doing short video is the hardest thing ever, like way harder than doing long form.
Yeah,
So yeah, you are going to need a little bit of a trial and error type of process to get where you want to go.
definitely.
But one thing that I'm also curious about a little bit. So you did mention optimizing that video. Can you? Is there actually clear information on how TikTok is assessing, the content of your video and how well it matches the user to show that to them.
Yeah, they are the information that we put in, they're not weighing as much, but the engagement they are weighing and using. So it is really about getting viewers to watch and to like and comment and share. But yeah, especially the watch part. So having them watch it, the full video or watch it multiple time is what's gonna push it out to the masses and keep that virality going if you want to have a video that goes viral.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't plan for virality because it's so difficult to get. Um, but if you manage to do some trial and error and find a format that works for you, just reuse it, really, because you are most likely gonna get that traction again. So you don't have to rediscover ways of working all the time.
Okay. Okay. So this is sort of lining up nicely with my other question, which was like beyond the technical elements, what separates good content from the rest, like what do you see works? And I would assume it's about like testing out different approaches, different ways of showcasing that content and so on.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm also curious to ask about is you mentioned audio and trending sounds and so on. Can you speak a little bit about that, and especially describing what are the opportunities for brands to use these, because we know that there's some nuance on what's available to brands and what they can actually use.
Yeah, there are some limitations for brands, but it's there should be some available that are also trending, so you can figure that out. The sound side is just really important because that is what TikTok is born from. It's born from the platform that was called Musical.ly. So it has always been a huge part of it and the experience of the videos. So if you are during a video where you're not talking or explaining something, then you should keep that sound over it. There's a lot of people that are using TikTok as a music streaming platform where they are discovering new music. Uh, if anybody knows Stranger Things, and when the last season went live, we had this Kate Bush song that went completely viral, and a lot of people used it on their TikTok videos as well. So if you can add a soundtrack to it, definitely do it. But again, if it's a more how can you say it, a production of videos where you are more comfortable doing a voiceover or being a host in your video and maybe interviewing people in an office or clients or something like that in a fun way, that is enough because then you have the sound from the voiceover instead, and it's very interactive. So it doesn't have to be that you have to find a commercial song. It is just a very big part of the platform having that song and
Yeah.
using sounds that are trending, because again, the sounds are not necessarily a, a piece of music. It's not necessarily something that comes from an artist. Sometimes it's just made by a computer or an AI or something like that. And it's just to give a vibe, really, to the video you're watching and make it more comfortable or fun or, yeah. The way music works in film as well in
Yeah.
movies, it's the same thing.
And I would assume on that topic of voiceover versus music, I think we can always apply the old adage that variety is the spice of life. So you'd want to mix the two within your account to sort of benefit both from the trend that's currently up there, but also creating content that may be a little bit more substantial and more educational and so on, where you would need that voiceover.
Yeah, exactly. Also, if you want to play around with voices or sounds, there is a whole sub-talk community around ASMR videos. So
Yeah.
they want to listen to that that weird sound, I would say. So you can also do that. But if you want to showcase something, my favorite example is dentists doing imprints of teeth.
Okay.
And if you watch those videos, it's a very small dentist. I had it at the conference as well. Um, it's a very small dentist in Denmark that are putting these videos onto TikTok, and they get around 42 million views each time they do it.
Wow.
But I would imagine if you just had the sound from the actual imprint on the teeth, that will not be a great sound, because you get that suction noise. So they just put something very lightly mooded music over it, so it looks fun to watch, but also sounds comfortable, even though
Yeah.
what you're watching might not be that comfortable.
Yeah. Oh wow. That's also a very interesting use case because you're sort of demonstrating the process of something that people will feel skittish about at first, and you're showing them, hey, like it's not actually, that scary or that bad. Like it can happen quickly.
Yeah.
And it's going to be actually a more comfortable experience than you imagine.
Yeah, it
That
can also do, sorry, it can also do the opposite, because I know or have seen, if you know chiropractors, if they do educational content, there was a trend once where people put pasta in their teeth, and then when they were doing stuff with their body, they would crack that pasta, so it sounded like bones were cracking up or
oof.
breaking. And I would imagine that would be the opposite, the opposite of comfortable, because you thought you were breaking stuff.
Yeah.
So it can do the opposite as well.
Yeah, damn. Like these niche trends that originate from TikTok are always so interesting. But both of these examples are from an industry that we wouldn't usually associate with, cool social media type of content. And that kind of ties nicely with the question we have in the chat about, are there any industries that don't make sense to be on TikTok? And Lina here is saying, I'm thinking more B2B brands that focus on services versus a product, like market research agencies, consulting, and so on. What's your take on that?
It really depends again what you want to do with it, because the one way to do it is, of course, selling your product without selling it. But the other way you could do it is employer branding. So just showcasing who you are and what your workplace and your company represents internally. We have, or I have an example from KPMG, one of the big consulting agencies. They are just showing corporate life. So having these small videos around, oh, I forgot my password after a vacation, how annoying. And then again, a fun sound plays over it, and you see someone sitting at their desk being like, oh, how annoying. So there is a lot of different ways you can approach it. You just have to find the right way for you to do it. But if you are in a company or represent a brand or a service where you are very polished and you don't have that, um, or the bureaucracy won't allow you to have fun with it, then no, then it might not make sense to be on TikTok, because then you will just have maybe a tough time internally actually selling it as a platform to be on.
So it's more about the internal approval process than the industry. That's like an interesting insight. I never thought about it in that way. Actually, one thing I saw yesterday, and I'm gonna include it in the key takeaways, though it's not a TikTok example, was there was this crazy funny post from the NHS, which was about, like, if you remember something along the lines of, if you remember this version of Harry Styles, and it was a photo of him in X Factor like 10, 15 years ago. I don't even remember when it was. then it might be time for a cervical exam. And this was like specifically targeted at women essentially my age who are like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. So it was a great example that even a big corporate organization like the NHS, healthcare,
Mm.
Britain, it's all like very bureaucratic. If they can do something like that and stand out and actually speak the language of their customers, then probably you can use this as an example and show to your legal department and be like, hey, if the NHS can do this, like we should probably figure out how we can do the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
The world is open and full of possibilities. You just have to just find your niche within it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And another point related to Lina's question about services brands specifically, I think coming back to what you were talking about, the three different types of content, which is aspirational, more educational, let's call it, and then tactical. On the educational type of content, you can do quite a lot demonstrating what your services are all about and how you approach different topics and how you think about them. And this might be content that actually fares well on TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. And also, again, if you have videos that are very product focused, then also have some that are not, because it's not a sales platform. And that's also key to remember. You're not on there to sell something specifically, because the user journey is so complex. So nobody's going to go on TikTok and see a video and then go onto a website and buy immediately. They're going to
Yeah.
see that TikTok and then they're going to do 10,000 other things before actually converting or booking an appointment somewhere or yeah, just doing what they do. They're gonna search on Reddit, they're gonna search on Google, they're gonna watch some news or go into the world and see an outdoor placement. So all of the other media channels are also coming into this. So keep that that split between being product focused but not selling, and then having videos that are not related to your product at all or showcasing your product very subtle. So not you're gonna call it product placement really in TikTok videos.
No, that's interesting, and also going back to what you mentioned earlier, having that human element and showing the people behind the brand more than the product or the service that you're selling. This can be a good approach for TikTok. So it might be worth investigating, and especially in services brands where you're part of the decision you make as a person hiring a marketing agency or a consulting firm is who you're going to be working with. So
Yeah.
if you can showcase the people behind it, it's going to be to be a way to differentiate yourself from others who are who have these same services in their portfolio, but you're approaching them in a different way and from a different perspective.
Yeah, and also just tapping into everyday issues that we all know and hate, really, because that is something we can come together around, and then you have that connection all of a sudden with your audience or your customers, because they might see something very similar to themselves in your brand, and then you can build on that with other videos as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so stepping away a little bit from that question about B2B, the other thing that we sort of set out to discuss in this session that I really want to talk about is the idea of like, oh, like my brand is too boring or too corporate to be on TikTok. I know you have some great examples of companies that or brands and organizations that would be considered boring. And I'm putting it in quotes because if you're passionate enough about telling your story, it doesn't feel boring to others. But yeah, what would be some examples that you can give, or even strategies for people and for marketers who might feel this way?
The most perfect example I have is from a Danish union that are active on TikTok and has actually been a first mover in Denmark on using TikTok in general. And when you think about a union, you're very, from my perspective, at least very like, who wants to know about unions? But they have found this sweet spot where they're catering to the younger audience and educating them within their rights when it comes to workplace environment and how many hours they need to work each week and stuff like that. Things that you are not maybe necessarily educated on elsewhere, but it's very relevant because most young people have a job when they study or just when they're finished studying. But also some attorneys do it where they offer advice on taxes or apartment rentals and stuff like that. So again, you have to figure out if your brand is actually boring or if you're sitting on knowledge that people actually want to know. Because maybe they will want to know actually what you're doing or what the ups and downs are within your territory, if you could say. Um, Another great example is doctors. Again, if you just take the profession, it can be really boring if you put that into social media perspective and a short form video perspective. But again, doctors know so much around health and stuff a lot of people are really interested in. So if you go onto the platform and actually share that knowledge and do it in a fun way, all of a sudden, then it becomes really something that people want to see and know more about. And then, yeah, you can build on that.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, and I think from my perspective as someone who's managing the content strategy rather than being like very deep into the production, I think the role of a person like me and whoever it is within your organization who's planning the whole content marketing plan and approach to TikTok in this case is to, from the one hand, gather information about what's interesting to people, what they would like to know, and then on the other hand, getting these internal subject matter experts to present that information. And here you might need to do some convincing and some internal politics to get people to feel comfortable being on video and doing curious stuff. But as you mentioned, a specific healthcare example comes to mind where they managed to get their doctors from a big health clinic in the US. They managed to convince their doctors to speak about these different topics that their research showed the audience cares about, and they got pretty great results. What we're going to do is collect all of this information and share it together with the key takeaways that I will be sending to everyone who registered for this. So look out for that follow-up email. There will be a ton of links to videos you might want to check out and examples and case studies. One other question that I want to cover within this, is it for me kind of section of this chat we have is what's the relationship between organic and paid on TikTok? So there's again this concept that you either need great production quality, which costs money, or you need a big advertising budget to back up your videos with. So can you speak a little bit about that? The all the intricacies of investing, in TikTok.
Definitely. The most important rule for TikTok is that it has to be native to the platform. So that goes both in organic, but also especially in the paid ads that you're doing. You cannot use the assets that you have for a YouTube placement or a display placement or paid search placement in general. You cannot use that within TikTok because it's too polished. It has to feel very natural and very down to earth. So the best way to do it both organically and from the paid perspective is to really have an organic video that you post, and then after 2 to 3 days, when that traction has happened organically, then put some money behind it and push it out into the paid perspective as well, boosting it. That would be the best way to do it. And then if you have a contact directly to TikTok, they would most likely just say put some money into the ads, because that is where they make their money, and that is often gonna take these or have these very polished assets in it. Um, but again, you need to, if you don't have a lot of money for it and don't have a huge marketing team you can pull on and that can create these very fine assets, then the best way to do it is to create that organic video and then boosting it after a couple of days. Um, because the great thing about TikTok is it's not a mature platform. So the prices for actually spending money on it are very low, at least in Denmark. So so I would imagine that's the same in most countries, really. So if you have to choose between TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, then in most cases TikTok is gonna be the cheapest one, and you can have fun with it.
One curious thing you said here was boosting it after a couple of days. Is that in order for it to get all the organic exposure it can, or do you want to collect some data to see if it's even worth boosting?
It is to have it gather the organic traction first, because if you post it organically and then boost it immediately, then you're gonna not get that impact from the organic side. So it is to make sure that it's doing its rounds organically first, because it might go viral and then it will happen very quickly. But if it doesn't do that, then you can boost it after those days, and then you have the full effect of the synergies between the organic channel and the paid channel.
Okay, awesome. I have a couple of more questions to ask you, and I'm gonna take full advantage of the fact that I have you here, all to myself
Yes.
in this direct face-to-face way. But I want to mention to anyone watching us live, if you want to leave your questions for Mathilde in the chat, we're going to have some time to ask them at the end, so you can think through them and drop them in the chat. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask a couple more. So, when you're just starting out, obviously it's a new channel. It might be one that you don't, as a marketer, feel particularly accustomed to. Let's say, what's your recommended process about starting out on the platform? Are there specific steps that you want to take? How much content? How often do you need to publish? How should you go about planning all of that awesome beginner stuff?
If you have never used the platform before, you need to download it and you need to just use it as a regular user. So getting to know the ins and outs and just getting a feel for the algorithm and how it tailors itself to you, depending on how much you're using it. Because that is really the best way to actually get your fundamentals in order before you create something. It is just to get a feel of the platform because it is so different. And then when you're ready to start producing, um, it is a very good idea to post rather often because time moves so quickly within TikTok. So you need to have that content available. But my recommendation would be that if you want to start posting stuff and doing the videos, then select maybe 1 day each month or 2 days each month where you just film it all, because the videos are so short. So having lots of raw material and just really keeping that going in a single day, you can actually create a lot of different storylines. You have to do that preparation before, of course, but yeah, film all of those storylines, all of the ideas that you have, then taking the time afterwards to cut it up and edit it. And then you will have that content plan or content bank with a lot of different videos that you can then post on maybe 3 days, every 3 days or every week, or what fits you, and the material that you have collected in those filming days. But yeah, you need to have some sort of an idea on what you want to film and what the storyline is supposed to be. So you need to prepare that first. So yeah, if I maybe that's you, or maybe that's your social team that are more creative than you are. It would be for my instance because I'm not very creative. Um, but yeah, going in and knowing what to film is key, and then making sure that you just plan ahead, like you would if it was an SEO roadmap or a social media content plan. You need to know what's coming, and if you're gonna take some time off, then plan ahead and make sure you have those video ready so you can just press post, and then you don't have to think about it.
Yeah. One other thing that I've seen work really nicely that I think we can recommend to people is to shoot B-roll, as they call it in video. Just for example, if you're a consultant and you want to talk about you routinely talk about your approach to content marketing planning or something like that, you can have imagery of you typing on a keyboard, filling out a content calendar or something like that, and then you can reuse this and just record voiceover on top of it and captions when you're actually talking through the educational aspects that you want to share with your audience about different content planning. And you can easily reuse this in a couple of videos without people really noticing, because as Mathilde already told us, no one is going to your page and just watching, like binging on your content. um, so that's a nice way to have the video footage that you need without spending so much time on doing the whole production that's related to that and creating something unique for every video.
Yeah, exactly. A very popular format is A Day in My Life. So where users take you through what they did in their day. And that includes just tapes of them making a coffee from the coffee machine, or yeah, typing on their computer, or doing stuff that you can reuse for other purposes as well. So that's really great point.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, when you have eventually your library of content and you're posting regularly, what are the metrics that you're keeping an eye on to figure out what's working and not?
Definitely the engagement. It's really important to look at the views. It's important to look at the likes and the view time, because that is what is driving the push in the algorithm first and foremost. Um, Again, TikTok doesn't offer API connections, so you can't really put the organic performance into any other dashboarding solutions or something like that. But you can go into on a video level and see where the traffic is coming from. So if you have a specific video that is doing really well, you can go into the information on that video, the analytics, and see, is the traffic coming from the For You page, is it coming from the search results, and when do people stop watching and scroll past it? Because then you can begin and analyze on that data, and make some assumptions on what works and what doesn't, and test it out. Um, what you can also do if you want that performance over time, is of course look at the profile analytics. You won't get them on a video level, but you can get it just an overall from for the profile that you have. You can also make it very manual and put it into an Excel sheet or a Google Sheets or something like that. So you have your video names in a column, and then the After 1 day, what does the performance look like? After 3 days, what does it look like? After a week, a month, and so on, and then decide what is the cutoff date, and then track it that way, because then you have a full overview at some point in time.
Yeah.
Um, I think the most important thing is to figure out a way that works for you, because if it is a video around something that you also have on your website, you need to figure a way to bridge those two things without actually linking into your website. So if you are making a video around some questions that you also are answering on a landing page, then setting up a way to monitor that and the traffic you have on your video, and then also making sure that you monitor your Google Search Console or Google Analytics for that specific page that relates to it, and see if you can see any uplifts. Because of course, in the end, we need to combine the two platforms and we need to have people actually converting. But again, it might not happen in the same session. So if you're doing a push around a certain topic in a lot of different videos, also finding a way to actually monitor that on the website as well is going to be key, so you can show it to management that it does actually have an effect. It's just not it's not just you having fun with
Yeah.
videos on a social media platform.
Yeah. One very interesting use case about doing a lot of video content and bridging that gap to figuring out what's the impact on traffic I recently heard was this woman, and she has an online community for generalists, so professionals who don't, identify with any like super niche expert role. And what she's doing is creating a lot of short format video content about the specific issues you face as a generalist and how to figure out what's your type, because she has sort of identified these different types of generalists. And what she's done, and I felt that it was super smart, she has bought a domain that she uses specifically for her videos, which is called something like generalistquiz.com or something like that. So it's long enough for it to be cheap, but it's short enough to be easily typable on a mobile device after someone watches a video. And that domain, it just redirects to the subpage on her website with that particular quizzing question. And having that redirect also means that she has very specific data on people who have seen this link on a video, and they are going back to her website to check out the actual quiz. And I thought that this was a very smart way of going about it. So maybe this might be something that sparks an idea in people's minds.
Yeah. Also, just remembering to include your social videos on your website is really important, because users are looking for that smoother journey, and if they liked your content on the social platforms, not just on TikTok but any social platform, they're mostly also very likely to also want to see it on your webpage.
Yeah.
So if you are doing again a video specifically around a guide or a how to or something like that, make sure you include it on the landing page that is also describing that how to in text, because then you have the holy trinity of content. You have images, you have text, you have videos, and you have them maybe both in a horizontal YouTube video, and you maybe also have it in a vertical TikTok video. So you have it from all of the for all of the users that want to see different things.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it also then gives people a subtle hint that you're also on TikTok, and they might check out more of your content, which will start to turn that
Yes.
flywheel of discoverability.
Yes, exactly.
Um, yeah. So speaking of discoverability, we have a question in the chat from Stephanie about the use of hashtags on TikTok. So she says that she recently heard that it's not working anymore on the platform as a way to boost visibility. What's your take on that? Do you have any insights into that question?
From what I've seen, the more generic hashtags still has some effect because it's both the really generic ones, so the FYP for you page shortening you can use, but also the XYZ, and if you are in a broader talk um, subcategory, so travel talk and food talk and corporate talk and car talk and what else, book talk, they are also gonna work because it's a very specific signal to the algorithm that this is the big thing that your video is going to be about or fits into. But again, the algorithm is extremely strong and extremely specific. So even though you're creating a video without any description and without any text, it might find its way to the right people anyway because it can decode what is happening in the video. So I would say it's I agree, but I also disagree because it's we do still see that the generic hashtags are working.
Yeah. And I'd also assume that it's very easy for the algorithm to figure out if you're just hashtag spamming. So if you have, car talk, food talk, book talk on the same video, they're like, okay, like this
Yeah,
girl is just, here for the likes.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
and also a point to make, you can still search for hashtags on TikTok. So saying that they don't have any effect is again very contradictive because why would you then have the ability to actually search for them if they don't have any meaning? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, keep it to maybe a maximum of 3 or 4 hashtags in a single video and not no spamming allowed, please.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I want to spend these last few minutes talking a little bit about tooling and technology. So on the tool side, is there anything you already mentioned that TikTok for now is a very closed off platform and you can't really use external tools, but beyond maybe the analytics side, what are the tools that you use and you'd recommend people to check out for anything related to your TikTok planning and strategy?
Again, a disclaimer: I'm an SEO specialist and not as a video choreographer or anything. So my usage of it is very basic, I would say. I think a lot of social media managers might have a very different tool and maybe more complex tools that I use. But I really like CapCut because it's owned by TikTok and it has very much the same functionalities as if you had to make a video within TikTok. You just don't have the oh my god, it went completely dark here. I'm so sorry. But they don't have the other platforms don't have the necessarily the capabilities that CapCut has because it's so bespoke to TikTok specifically. But if you are creating to different types of social media platform, then a program like Canva or something else might be the better choice because it has the opportunity to actually cater it to a lot of different social media platforms, whereas CapCut is only for TikTok.
Yeah. I think that life and the forces that be are playing a trick on us today. First, it was internet connection, then it was riverside crashing. Now it's it's your lightning situation there.
Yeah,
But I mean, like we still hear you, which is the most important stuff, and we still see you, which is the magic of today's camera capabilities, so we're good to finish this off. So
good.
yeah, and it's still a question about we are talking about tools and technology. So even when technology is failing, we marketers, we roll with it and we persist.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So the final thing that I wanted to talk to you before I let you go is obviously there is no way for me to not mention AI in one of these sessions. I think like we need to keep the streak going. So, are there currently parts of your process where you're using AI and some automations, and what are those?
For the video production part, I would not use AI because again, it
Mm-hmm.
has to be native and it has to feel like it has been created specifically for TikTok and that specific audience. So I wouldn't recommend using any AI video creating tools.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to have a very unserious relationship with the platform and if you want to make fun videos that is not related to any product or any brand really, then you can do that. I guess you've all seen bears jumping on trampolines or something like that. Then it makes total sense to use it, but not specifically for when we
Mm.
have a more corporate side to it. But when it comes to optimizing processes elsewhere, so if it's in the uh, idea phase or if it's in the analysis phase or just wanting to get some how can you say it, some feedback from
Mm.
somebody or something, then I think AI is a friend in that.
Yeah.
I think it really goes for at least for my SEO work as well on a daily basis. It's not gonna replace the tools I'm using, but it's gonna aid
Mm-hmm.
in how I approach them, and that is
Mm-hmm.
really the same thing on TikTok and on the creating side.
Mm-hmm.
It's not gonna be what is gonna do it, but it's gonna aid me in my approach to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
sorry, yeah.
No, yeah. And I would also say, on top of what you already mentioned for using AI for ideation and so on, I would say creating a first pass of a script is also something I use AI a lot for. And it's just removes that initial barrier of, oh, okay, like there's a blank page over here. What the heck do I do with it? So this is also a favorite use case of mine too.
Yeah, and they are they have become so good at
Yeah.
accessing all of the web content that we are putting into the internet.
Yeah.
So if you have an idea or if you have a product, you could start out by asking, for instance, ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity or something like that. I'm thinking about going onto TikTok, and I want to present my brand in this way. What do you think I should do? And then just
Mm.
see what it proposes because it might be something that is awful, but it might also be some really good perspectives because it has the ability to crawl all of that information that is out there and what works and what
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And even if it proposes something awful,
Yeah,
you have a point to say, okay, this isn't working because these and these reasons. So maybe if I do the opposite, it's going to work. So it's
yeah,
also an interesting way of going about ideation. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, last question on my end. What are the, your, let's say, top three favorite TikTok brands or creators? And obviously, I'm going to ask you to not include clients because then you'd be too biased. But what's your personal recommendations?
I love Duolingo. I haven't seen them for a long time. I think it's because they have stopped using their mascot, the do bird. But
Yeah.
I just loved their approach to the platform. It's a very fun way that they chose to actually engage with the community because who wants to uh, really translate stuff or learn a new language? A lot of people do, but I would guess the service in general is very might be boring for some,
Mm.
but they chose an approach where they just had fun with it and just yeah tapped into very pop culture relevant things that a lot of people could relate to. So yeah, Duolingo is definitely one of my faves. And then if I have to take a local one, again, a boring brand, but the Danish police force has a unit for online presence where they want to guide especially children on how they should use online platforms, but also if you are a victim of having some images shared of you and stuff like that, educating people on what and how you should proceed. They have their TikTok account, which is also really fun. They do dancing, they do fun videos, they make fun of criminals and themselves. And I would believe if you think about a police force in any country and in any city, you would think, how would they want to present themselves in such an unserious way? But
Yeah.
it just makes sense for the people that they are targeting, the young ones, but also for us older ones who are watching it, and it just resonates a lot. So
Yeah.
so yeah, that's two of my favorites, and yeah, I think I could mention a lot, but it caters to different needs. So I mentioned Sage earlier. I'm looking for an espresso machine, and I think they're doing a really good job at the moment for that specific need that I have. Because they are showcasing their machines and what they can do and what they cannot do, and how proficient you need to be in using a machine. Um, but yeah, the big ones, the big global brands are that really have turned to TikTok and are using it very actively. They are always fun to watch and follow.
Cool. Awesome. And these all showcase completely different, first off, user intents, and also completely branding completely different industries, which is cool. And it's that final proof that we need that TikTok is not just for Gen Z, it's not just for fun brands and the Red Bulls and the Nikes, it can be for everyone, and especially if you want to show up where customers are already searching for information, you need to take TikTok into account and you need to give the platform a serious look.
Yeah.
Right. Great. I think this was so packed with a lot of interesting examples, a lot of interesting insights. I'm gonna have a wonderful time collecting all of these bits and pieces into the key takeaways recap after the session. So, another reminder for anyone who's here, if you are on the Lumo registration page already and you've left your email, you're going to receive a recap from me in a couple of days, together with the video as well. And if you're watching this through whatever unfathomable reason without having registered on Luma, I'm going to share it in the video description, and you can register there and you're going to get the information. Even if you're registering after the event date, it's still going to work, and send you the details. So that's it from me. Mathilde, thank you so much for doing this. And when we were starting out, you were wondering how we're gonna fill 90 minutes. I think we managed almost up to the minute in
Yeah.
doing that. And yeah, it was a great session, and I really loved all the insights that you shared with us. So thank you again. And
Thank you for
we're
letting
going
me
to
share.
also link, yeah, we're going to also link to your LinkedIn account and all the spaces where people can find you online.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me and getting to speak 90 minutes for about TikTok and social.
Yeah, cool. And everyone who's watching, thank you so much for being together with us both. And I'm going to see you in the next one, probably.